Hey there, audio friends. MrAyrit here. Got a quick IEM review for you. This is the KZ ZAS. This is an 8-driver IEM. That means one kind of typical regular dynamic driver paired with 7 balanced armatures. I haven't tried a KZ product in quite a while. Full disclosure, they sent this out for free to me, but other than that, they're not asking for any sort of specific input or anything on this video, so it's just an honest review, but they did send it to me for free, so thank you, KZ, for sending this out. Like I said, it's been quite a while. When I first started doing reviews, videos, KZ was one of those brands that was like, good bang for buck as far as IEMs go. A lot of them were very cheap IEMs. We're talking like $15, $20, $30. I never was super impressed with any of the ones that I had tried. I mean, you could go back and watch some of those early videos, but my experience was pretty limited at that point in time, but I don't remember any of them ever standing out as like a top contender for me. Now, these guys, they come in at about $70 to $80 at the time of recording this video. So, at that price point, they got to be pretty darn good IEMs because there's lots and lots of good IEMs on the market at this point in time for not a lot of money. So I was interested to give these a try and see how KZ has evolved over the years and if their products have improved. So the first thing that I'll say about this is the build quality seems good to me. The cable, like the accessories package, is largely the same as it's always been, so it's pretty bare bones. I don't have it here because it wasn't even worth showing or saving. Not a huge fan of the tips, but I did find some that fit me. Of course, they come with a few sets, but there's nothing special about them in general. The cable, I actually feel like, is pretty nice. It's definitely a step above like an entry-level IEM cable. This is more on par with like a cable that I would actually purchase for an IEM, like to replace some of those really, really cheapo IEM ones. So it's 2-pin connector. It does get a little bit tangly, but I mean, so is probably just about any IEM cable going to be, but I found it to largely work pretty good and feel pretty nice. It's like 8-strand silver. I mean, I'll link to the description on Amazon and you can kind of go through some of those specs there if you want. But the short answer is that the cable is pretty nice and better than just like the bare minimum IEM cable. As far as the design of them goes, I mean, I kind of like it. It's see-through, which just like mine came with a white and silver faceplate. I found all that to be totally fine. I think it looks kind of neat. I kind of like seeing the internals on these guys and stuff, and you can see all the little crap they got shoved in there because there's a lot shoved in here. As far as fit goes, I found them to fit. Once I got the right tips on there, I find them to fit pretty good. I don't really have any problem with them. I mean, I would just say it's like a pretty generic IEM fit as far as that goes. Like, I think the package, like physically, like the IEMs and the cable, it's all, decent, nothing to really complain about. Nothing that's going to wow you, but nothing to complain about either. Okay, so let's start talking sound. And I think this is an IEM that's pretty decent. It's definitely not going to be for everybody. It's a bass heavy IEM, definitely more bass than neutral, which isn't usually my cup of tea. But at the same time, I don't feel like this is implemented particularly like poorly. Like, I feel like it's implemented fairly well, and the bass is pretty enjoyable. There's just probably more of it than I would typically go for myself. So I would say that is by far like the most outstanding sonic characteristic of these IEMs is just how much bass quantity is here, which tends to tilt the signature towards like a little bit darker. And on not as good of sources, I feel like it can get pretty muddy, and sounds pretty dark. Now, when you pair it with a decent source, and even something like the Dawn Pro is enough for this, I feel like it has some decent spatial information and separation between things in there. And, and I've used it also on the Element 4 and the K15, and I've got the Fosi ZH3 over here. And on all those, I found it to be pretty enjoyable. And I found kind of the mids and the highs are probably pretty well balanced. But again, it's just the bass kind of overwhelms most of it. But there's still some good detail there, and the timbre actually is surprisingly good on this as well, which that I feel like in my experience with like balanced armature IEMs is just like the timbre isn't quite there. They sound kind of plasticky or tinny or, just not quite right. But I think these guys actually have some pretty great timbre to them. So, and then the highs are just well controlled. I mean, there's detail there. Again, it's not like in your face, like it takes a backseat to the bass, but it's still there, and what's there sounds pretty good to my ear. So I think they're a pretty decent IEM if you want a really bass heavy, little bit darker tilting IEM. I think they do that while still maintaining good timbre and detail in the middle frequencies and in the upper frequencies. It's just there's a lot of bass there. But this might be a headphone to add to your collection. If you've already got a pretty neutral leaning IEM, maybe you want to add a bassy IEM, and that's where I would start looking at this guy. So I think for a bassy IEM under $100, I think it's worth taking a look at. I think they, I think it does that pretty well, and at a reasonable price. So I was happy to try this KZ IEM. Like I said, I don't do a lot of IEMs. It's not really my main thing, but maybe I should try some more. I feel like this is one of those areas where like the technology has probably like advanced enough that I should maybe like look around in them a little more and maybe do. Maybe I'll bring back the March IE madness. Maybe it was a good idea this year because I haven't been trying very many IEMs, and that would give me time to kind of amass a few. Yeah, so thanks, KZ, for sending this out. Thanks to you guys for watching. Quick review, but I think that's all that's needed for this one. Hopefully I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.